Here comes the wave. Wave. Pull.
Oh shit, here comes another one.
Out the back. Yeah. Wave, Dave.
Dude, this guy's a badass.
Okay, you go.
Okay.
It was a fairly big boat. Not anything like huge, but you know, a nice sized boat that you would see in the harbor. I'm not too educated with boat stuff and all that, but from my perspective, it was a big boat. And within 10 minutes, the swell pushed it all the way into the rocks, and was getting banged up against the rocks, and we're sitting up on the cliff with our lights screaming like, "Hey, is anyone in there? Is anyone in there?" And no response.
The captain showed up from down below and was pretty disoriented. Eventually he got himself and his dog off the boat. I wasn't actually there for that part because I didn't have any cell phone coverage from the cliff, so I headed back to where I could get coverage and called people that I thought would actually be able to help in this situation. I wasn't really prepared to do anything at the time. So we got the Coast Guard and lifeguards on their way, and they were there pretty quick.
Yeah. Worst case scenario for boats on the beach is when they break up. In this particular case, what we were worried about more than anything was the keel separating from the vessel. And the keel's about a 4,000 pound piece of lead that actually creates the weight on the bottom of the boat to keep it upright when it's in the water. And it's attached with several bolts through a significant sized hole on the bottom of the boat.
We took the towboat, we raced to the harbor, got on the towboat, and came in, from the water side. And in a situation like that, you actually, to get the tow line from your vessel to the vessel in distress, you have to swim it in because the water's too shallow for one, and two, there's a huge kelp bed in between you and the vessel. So,
And all of the other first responders were there, like lifeguards, firefighters, up on the cliff. No one was necessarily on the water. And David comes swimming in super fast. I think he had the harness with him to wrap everything up. Climbs up on the boat and is getting slammed around, holding on to things. Everyone's screaming when there's a wave coming. They're like, "Wave, wave!" So he can, brace himself.
Get a little bit nerve-wracking at a couple points. Swimming through kelp with like lines attached to you, you can get entangled. So I was able to avoid that, luckily.
We asked him to look inside, make sure there was no water, no sand in the boat. If he would have said that there was a lot of water in the boat and he couldn't see, and he could see where it was coming from, or if there was a crack in the hull, in all likelihood, we would have stopped right there and tried to come effect some temporary repairs to make the boat seaworthy, or we might have been forced just to give up and opt for a landside extraction of that boat.
I remember one thing that was pretty crazy was he harnessed it all in, and then the boat the tide was coming down, so it got so shallow that the boat fully flipped onto its side while he was in it. So it looked like he had to hang on to it and hold himself up.
And spending over a decade in the Coast Guard and surfing, I feel pretty comfortable in the water. But above that, when you're hyper focused on a situation like that, not getting crushed between the cliff and the boat, or trying to watch for the swell to judge, will this actually knock the boat over its keel, because that's a pretty violent action, which did happen once. You're really just focused on the situation, and you don't really have or at least I don't have the bandwidth to be nervous. But if you're just really focused on solving the problem at hand, that stuff kind of comes back later. You're like, oh man, that was a little bit nerve-wracking at times. It takes everybody. It wasn't just me. It was Monty and his crew and the lifeguards. The firefighters all showed up and helped make a safe situation. Monty's who runs the towboat company locally here is kind of the voice of reason and calmness, and has decades of experience. He was a submariner in the Navy, and then is just an extremely experienced waterman. Also, the first responders here in Santa Cruz, the lifeguards specifically. I mean, I didn't swim the line all the way, and I got it quite a bit of the way. And then the lifeguards, I'm not a competitive swimmer. As soon as one of the lifeguards got to me and helped grab the line, I was like, oh my God, these guys are machines, and realized I have a lot of work I need to do on myself.
If the boat had sat there for a tide cycle while everybody was trying to figure out what to do, I think it would have been a completely different outcome. I think the boat would have broken up. So for David to give us that call immediately and get us on the way was one thing, and then trying to find crew members at night's a little bit hard for us, and David was more than willing to put his life at risk and grab a tow line and swim the 100 yards that we left him to get into the boat. It's not an easy operation. People that are boating around in the area, the first thing they can do to be safe is always wear a life jacket, because you never know what's going to happen and you never know when it's going to happen. And if you're in the water without a life jacket, it's too late for you, and you put yourself in a big amount of danger. The second thing is that when we find boats on the beach, more often than not, there's an anchor on the boat and it's never been deployed. And that was the case in this scenario. The boat would have incurred a whole lot less damage if the person on the boat would have tossed an anchor to create a safer situation for the boat while they had to wait for us to come help. Otherwise, boating's a great lifestyle. I love it. I love people. I love to see people out on boats. The main thing is just to take into account the risk that you're taking and think about all the things that could happen while you're out there, and be ready for those things when you go out.